All right, this is Jack Donovan. You're watching PH2T3R live. PH2T3R Journal for Solar Culture. It's been a minute since I've done this. But I'm here with my co-host and the author of many fine books, CB Robertson, who does Pater's normal journal. They're doing it on Sundays now. Some of the guys from the Order of Fire have taken it up and they're doing it. But we thought we'd talk today about some of the things that are going on in the world. And there's a lot of people who are losing their shit. And there's a lot of emotions in the world, and a lot of the events of the past 2 days are kind of creating some interesting waves. And the graphic that I chose for today's show was a picture that I took when I was in Rome. The graphic that we're using for YouTube. It's a picture that I took when I was in Rome, and it is of the rostra. And it's especially, I think, poignant for today because the rostra was where people gave political speeches, and including Cicero. And it is also where Cicero's hands and head were placed after he was assassinated for picking the wrong team. So given that we had a political assassination today, I thought that was kind of poignant. And also because all the unhinged things that I'm reading on X, I saw a bunch of guys saying, oh, well, I'll never stop being anonymous now because it's dangerous. And man, you pussies. I mean, I can see it, but I mean, it's still not that dangerous. Speaking, that's a pretty big, if you're going to become, I think I was watching Tim Pool today, and I think Charlie Kirk's organization Turning Point made $81 million a year. So, you know, until you get there, I think you're pretty good. I think you're pretty safe. So, and you know, it's like, well, all the great men that we know of history, Socrates, you know, many of the great speakers that we know of from histories. I mean, things don't always work well for men who say what they believe, but you kind of have to do it anyway. So anyway, I thought we'd dig into some of the many facets of things that we're seeing online, and yeah, I hate to be like kind of milquetoast and say cooler heads prevail or something like that, but I think people are wrapped up in emotional loops of seeing things that they're not used to seeing. And it was kind of one thing after another. And I think it's definitely pushing a lot of people over the edge. We have one guy in the order say that we had a discussion about it all day today in the order. And we had one guy say that he doesn't remember being this mad in a while. And I think it's important for people to step back and say, actually, nothing happened to you today. Like, nothing happened to you. Yes, some things happened in the world to people that you don't know. And it's important to keep that perspective. Actually, nothing's changed for almost anyone in America. Things are the same as they were 2 days ago. But some big changes have happened emotionally to people. But I think it's important for people to stay grounded a little bit and be like, well, nothing actually happened to you.
And I think it's
probably
important
not
to
going
say, I think it's important to say, even if you think something absolutely should happen, and if you are feeling that Aristotelian virtue of righteous anger, the way to accomplish something productive and good is to maintain a state of high agency. And that even if you think like absolutely something needs to happen, you have to maintain that high agency so you don't get wrapped up in this kind of thumos tornado of emotion and herded into some other course of action that would maybe undermine. So the perspective, I think you're correct, is valuable in its own way for your own life. But even from the sort of political activist's perspective, who wants to accomplish something, even then it is good to keep not complete detachment, obviously, but a degree of detachment, if only for functionality's sake.
Yeah, I mean, and that's furiously typing that you're angry about things online, especially if you're not a political pundit. You know, if you're a political pundit and you're a political influencer or something, and that's your job, is to be spicy and give hot takes or like be caught up in the emotion of the day. I can see that. But if you're a regular guy, if you're not, if that isn't your job, let's not say regular guy, because you know, one must not only be not basic, but one must also be anti-basic. So we don't want to just say regular guy, but if that's not what you do for a living, um, the idea that you have to vent what you're feeling at that very moment online is really a little bit masturbatory too, because it's not, it's like you're not accomplishing anything by doing that. You're just being like, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, and then doing nothing. So that, I mean, that's, you're really just putting out vibes that you're angry, which has some kind of flow to it.
Well, and there might be
in terms of the collective consciousness. If everybody says I'm angry at one time, it does make waves.
Well,
You
there
know,
might be
but
some cathartic value to this too, because
yeah,
when you think about something like grief and the expression of mourning at a funeral, one can say from a functional perspective that that grief is not accomplishing anything. It doesn't do anything to grieve for your lost friends. But the point of expressing grief at the loss of a friend is not to do something in a mechanical sense. It's to express the emotion sort of for your own internal sake. And I think there is something about uh, what the combination of Charlie Kirk, a very public person,
mm-hmm.
and Irina Zarutska, if I'm remembering her name correctly, I'm probably not,
Mm-hmm.
who was a private person, who was not any kind of public person at all. The combination of that, of those two extremes of publicity, sort of makes everyone feel represented and vicariously. Perhaps that wasn't you, but perhaps you had a family member who was, you know, struck by the knockout game, or was, you know, attacked by Antifa several years ago, or something like that. Um, and it feels that there's a feeling of representation, like they're going after this person because they would go after me if they could.
Right.
And it's, that is not crazy to think that way. But to your point, there is there's something more than mere grief in the expression of anger that people are doing. Like there's almost a will to rile each other up into doing something.
Right, because is there any grief there actually? I think the grief is performative, because you don't feel grief because of some stranger that you've never met died. There's no like, oh my God, I've experienced this loss.
Well,
I don't think there's any grief there. I think that there's the identification with that person and the empathy for that, I think, is totally valid. But like, I mean, are people really like, there's no sense of loss there?
there's a
I mean, like,
question.
no, we're not real. You know?
There's a question of whether or not they should feel grief over someone that they don't know. But I was my apprentice, who's a 22-year-old, fairly standard Idaho conservative kid.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered today that apparently he's an avid Charlie Kirk watcher.
Oh wow. Okay.
I didn't know that until today. I learned that he watched him all the time, and so for him, there's like a portion of his day that is now a hole, that there was
Yeah.
someone there once before, and he feels that hole. And I sort of had that experience preemptively when I learned several months ago that Scott Adams had been diagnosed with a particularly bad kind of cancer that's supposedly
Right.
incurable, although he's been hanging in there, and he did a second live stream today just to be there for people. And when I learned that, I double I wanted to watch him more, and what I ended up doing is watching him less because I already forecast in the future like he's not going to be there much longer, which is a very, very strange feeling. I've never met him. I've never talked with him before or anything like that.
Mhm.
But there was a strange feeling like grief light um, going on there. And I think many people felt a similar kind of preemptive or an almost sense of grief when Trump got shot as well.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
So, but to your point, it is valuable to periodically remember these digital connections are not the same as real life. And it's been a very weird week for me because I saw someone die about 5 feet away from me on Monday, like in
Right,
real life. Um,
right,
that's a very different experience than hearing about it on the news. Now the
right,
the visuals of it, I think what's made this news cycle so powerful this week is that everything was captured on film.
right,
A woman being stabbed on a train is, tragically or um, not that uncommon of a story
no,
in a normal news cycle. But seeing it and the visuals of this tall, dominant, he almost looked like an angel of death, or a demon standing
right,
behind this poor helpless girl. The profile contrast and everything. Um, it's such powerful imagery, and
right.
those kinds of images are not. No, I won't encourage people to go and watch the Charlie Kirk footage, but that was as bad as any Ukrainian FPV footage out there. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Once
there
I
was
saw the second angle, it was clear that
there's no
he wasn't going to
surviving
make
that.
it. No.
I had a couple people message me when I said Charlie Kirk is dead, and they said no, he's in the hospital, he's in critical condition. I'm like, that's just the media crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
They have to
He-
call people, and they
yeah,
have to let his family know. They have to like
anybody.
call the president and shit like that, you know?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
If you saw the shot from the close angle, you knew there's zero survival chance of that.
right.
So
Yeah. Well, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we should probably maybe create some context here and
Mhm.
and break these two things apart and kind of discuss them separately. So people know what we're talking about a little bit more. I think everybody's seen
Sure.
the videos, but I think there's this. I'm not going to try and pronounce the Ukrainian girl's name, but
Yeah.
uh, someone said everyone should remember her name, and I'm like, not in America. No one's going to remember that. That's going to be difficult, right?
I think it was
Um,
Irina Zarutska.
Arena people can remember, but yeah, it's like people won't know how to spell it.
Yeah.
But but um but yeah, she seemed like a nice girl. Apparently had Black Lives Matter picture on her wall, poster on her wall. There was a picture of that. Like young liberal girl from Europe, basically, and pretty girl, which is I think another reason why it took off
Yeah.
to a certain extent. But she's on this train. And she's obviously this guy who's obviously crazy. He's saying that if you listen to the tape of him talking later, he's telling the authorities that like the government put the material in him that made him do it, and it wasn't him, and the material was using his body. I mean, he's obviously like completely Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah. He's like
And
diagnosed schizophrenic. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if
So
diagnosed, but
it is
yeah.
what it is. Yeah, and pretty obviously schizophrenic. And so he all of a sudden pulls out a knife and hits her real fast. And it's a knife, so you can, like he cut her up real fast in the neck and just kind of stood up and started to walk away. And apparently said, "Got that white bitch" or whatever, which is not great. And all the other people were sitting around. This happens, and I want to address that because what's happened, and this is being used by bad actors a lot of white nationalists, a lot of anons on X, whatever, reposting this, and then it's getting to like normal people who I know who are also reposting it and being really mad about it, and they're saying no one helped. No one helped. And then they're blaming black people because no one helped. Because there's this tragic thing. It's like, oh, this girl was stabbed. She didn't even realize what happened, because you wouldn't. Like, you're just sitting there and all of a sudden you get stabbed out of nowhere. Like, your reaction time of like, this is reality is going to take, there's a lag there. People go into shock from like what's happened. And the same thing, man, if you were sitting beside somebody on a train and you saw that, perceiving that as real would take a minute.
Yeah.
You know, like that really happened. What happened? Because I mean, it's not like she started spouting blood. It wasn't like Kill Bill. It wasn't like the other video.
Well, it was a very small knife.
It was like,
and even she
yeah, it was a very
didn't
small
seem to
knife.
realize she'd been stabbed at first.
Right. And so like, so there's just this girl crying and this guy walking away, and then you see the blood. And man, if you're on an enclosed space with someone who's obviously crazy, who just stabbed somebody with a knife, who's a fairly imposing, I mean, that's not a midget, and you're just a regular person, I'm sorry, I don't believe you if you say that you're going to get up and bum rush a crazy guy with a knife on a train who just killed somebody and is looking to kill. You know, we don't know what he's trying to do. You're probably 3/4 of people are probably sitting there like, please don't see me. You know, like, is probably what most people would sit there and say. And I don't care. You're not a hero. All these people who think that they're going to do this, they wouldn't do it. They would say like, is what you, and you'd have that for, and you'd wait and you'd watch him get off the train, and which he did, or like got moved away or whatever to where they safe. But everybody cropped that out and sent pictures of these people did nothing.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing is to stoke race hatred. And the reality is, if you see further down after the guy gets off the train and it's safe, which is what they would tell any first responder to do. It's what they teach you in CPR. Wait till the scene is safe, because you don't want to get you killed too. Is that then as soon as that was safe, a black man and a white woman came over, and the black man took off his shirt and tried to stop the bleeding. And that is like not being shown a lot at all. And that's because of that, the amount of racial hatred that was stoked just because of the way that was cropped. And we complain about it when CNN does it. But this was these were other people doing that. And that's not, you know, like that's a bad situation that's being created. I mean, obviously there are a lot of racial problems in America. There's obviously a bad culture in a lot of like inner city blacks, and there are problems that haven't been dealt with. But I think you and I both have been through the whole like alt-right culture and whatever.
Well, and if there's any lesson,
this is not new to us.
Yeah. If there's any lesson from the alt-right, it is that if you lie about something, if you crop and alter media in order to present your narrative, you are creating a potential backlash in people who feel like they've been lied to. Too. Like, oh, they lied to do that. You're only giving, so there's no value in no long-term value, I'll say, in doing that. You can generate all kinds of short-term reactions and stuff.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, if you send someone down the black crime rabbit hole and they haven't been there before, they might stay there for a while.
Well, yeah.
You're making them very vulnerable to get picked up by a lot of groups who want to use them for things. I mean, like, the thing is, like, we were aware. I mean, you and I and people who are involved in all those kind of spaces, these dissident right spaces or whatever, we were aware of the black crime problem. We've seen the statistics. All that stuff that the media was hiding from regular people. We were seeing it all the time. This is not the first video like that I've seen, but far from it. But for a lot of people, that was being, like I said, that free speech fire hose effect. Yeah. This is coming through X. If we didn't have X, that video wouldn't have, we wouldn't even know this happened.
Yeah, CNN and MSNBC have not been reporting this at all.
Yeah, exactly. So no one would know that this happened, but because of X, it's coming out, and people were seeing things that they weren't seeing before. This is fairly common. Not fairly common like it happens all the time, but it does happen reasonably frequently. White
Yeah.
people get killed in on trains with black people all the time, um, and it's something America has to deal with. And that was always my point. That was why I was always involved in those things. Was like people need to know what's happening because they can't fix it if they don't even know that it's broken, or
Yeah.
they're living in this fantasy world where nothing bad is happening, or they're not allowed to talk about what's bad happening. They need to talk about it if they're going to come up with an actual solution. And like, so I think it's good. A lot of people are saying like, you shouldn't see a video like this. You shouldn't share videos like this. You should like, no one should see what happened to this girl. And I think they should. I think it's important for people to be scared and understand what that is and make better decisions about how they govern. You
Yeah.
know, like well, about the policies that, like, your policies that you believed in created this problem and made this possible. If you're scared enough, you will change your beliefs about about reality, and not pretend that you live in this magical bubble where nothing bad could ever happen. And someone said, a friend of mine, actually, one of the guys I know, I'm terrible with names when I come up in a second, but I've had him on my podcast before. But a guy I know who actually went to jail for January 6th, but he's unbelievably level-headed about a lot of things, but also, you know, can get extreme at times. He's like a dating relationship coach, but he Pat Stedman, yeah, and he said today that this is really going to radicalize white women in a different way because they're going to be able to see themselves in that image very viscerally. And so, yeah, I kind of want white women to see that. Like, if they realize, hey, this could happen to me, and maybe I need to actually be afraid and not pretend that, like, you know, these people are just poor and like an advantage if we just educate them more, and all the stupid things that they've been saying for 30 or 40 years. Maybe they're like, okay, these people are dangerous. How do we deal with this? Is a better question. And you need to, if they can actually like viscerally, like, because women are emotional creatures. It's like if you can put yourself in her place, and that could be you, maybe we can have a grown-up discussion about what we do to prevent things like that, rather than like defund the police and shit like that. You know, like, I think that maybe that is a silver lining, because I was sitting all day and I was seeing the bad, like I said, the kind of edited versions, and I'm seeing white guys reposting things from black Twitter that really aren't from black Twitter. They were from parody accounts, but let's just repost that anyway. You know, like, really, really pushing the narrative of like, let's like race war now. And so I was concerned with that, but, you know, I think that actually was a valid point, is that maybe a lot of women will see this and identify with it, and it will change something in them. What do you think about that?
Um, it's possible. I have learned that I'm very bad at predicting how women will think about or react to uh, news stories and so forth. So your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
As a group they'll respond. I mean, it would make sense because
Mhm.
I mean it. Uh, the most visceral reactions I've heard have been from fathers with daughters.
Right.
Um, and I felt a little bit of that too because there's right after the attack on the train, there's a moment where the girl is kind of looking back over her shoulder, and she's kind of
Right.
curled up in this sideways position that is the most helpless and cringing position you can imagine, underneath
Right.
this guy who is just kind of looming over her after just having stabbed her in the neck. And it looked like she felt like she just got punched, but is also maybe not sure what just happened or what's happening to her.
Right.
And it's you could not design a more perfect still shot to draw out, and in that posture, the young woman looks younger than she is. She looks
Mhm.
more like a teenager or even a child. So, something about the posture, and you could not design a more perfect image to draw out like paternal, protective, violent rage in
Right.
fathers of daughters if you wanted to. Um,
Interesting.
so as far as the women I have heard from on Instagram, more about Charlie Kirk, although there's more of a religious dimension to that. Um,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah, Charlie Kirk is a little different because, like you were saying at the beginning, he's not an everyman in the way that Arena
Right.
was.
I mean, he's a political
Um,
target. I mean, the president of the United States just
yeah,
eulogized him. I listened to it. It was it was actually pretty great.
yeah.
But
But
um,
I mean, he's not alone. You have the case of someone like Aaron Danielson from Portland
yeah.
back in, was that
Hmm.
2016, 2017?
Hmm.
Who was ambushed, hadn't done anything except to be, I don't remember if he was a member of the Proud Boys or was just kind of affiliated walking around. Um, a member of Antifa was radioed or something in advance that like one of them, a guy in a MAGA hat, was coming. So he hid in a parking garage, ambushed him, and shot him twice in the chest,
Right.
just out of nowhere. And then of course there's the Steve Scalise shootings, the Rand Paul attack, and of course Trump himself. But there have been people much smaller, like Andy No, got hit with
Right.
cement milkshakes and things like that. So this kind of political violence is targeting high level people, but it's certainly not exclusively high level people.
Right. 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 No, that's fair. Uh, yeah. I mean, before we go to Charlie, let's.
Mm,
There's
sure.
another thing that I noticed, and this is the spiciest thing that I wanted to say on X, but I was like, I don't need the heat for this right now because people are so emotional that if you say the wrong thing on X, all of a sudden it has like 120,000 views, and like and you're like the worst person who ever lived, and like
Right.
it's so volatile. I really don't like the platform. I like it because of the freedom and that I can get news there that I couldn't get anywhere else. But like,
It's great for
I
that.
don't like it for speaking out because people are so emotional and so volatile and so looking for something to bank off of. Yeah, like, but what I wanted to say is like, yeah, within, like the news cycle of that day of the killing of that girl video, that video going viral. Uh, Elon Musk and Andrew Tate and several other people had gathered millions of dollars for murals of this girl. So they can hire people to play. So millions of dollars. Like Elon put up 1 million, Andrew Tate put up 1 million, and so they're going to paint murals of this girl. Um, you
I
know,
don't like that.
in right, and the reason why I hope that we're on agreement of this is that like that is a Black Lives Matter thing. Um,
Well,
agree if you're the golden age society thing is not about painting murals of victims on places. That is some George Floyd thing
one, it's
stuff
it's
that, you know.
immortalizing trauma and making it. And this is there is a serious argument. I am
Yeah.
in agreement with you that it is good that people see these videos,
Yes.
right? Um, there is something bad that happens to your brain if you see too many of these videos. And I say this as someone who has seen maybe one too many Ukrainian FPV foot drone videos.
Yeah, I know.
It
I
is.
told you to stop sending them to me. So
I wasn't sending those to you,
you sent me
but
a couple, and I was like, I'm good. But
yeah, I think I sent you like two like a year ago or something.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. No,
because
I was like, I'm good.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to see too many of those. It's good to be familiar, but there's something bad that happens when you remind yourself of them and you rewire your brain with that repetition. You
Right.
become to identify. It becomes a part of your worldview in a way that is very bad, and for the reasons you're saying, like you don't want to immortalize and to reify trauma You don't want to reify and to realize and to make this injury a part of your culture and a part of your identity. That is, that's something that a few cultures have done more intensely than others, and it creates pathologies that lead to um, resentment and hatred. And I think yes, if there was any victim I would want to make a mural or a statue of. Speaking of the Ukraine war, there was a great fight, if I could say that, brutal but great, between a Russian Yakutsk soldier and a Ukrainian soldier that was basically a knife fight. And there was a moment after the Russian soldier had mortally wounded the Ukrainian soldier that he basically said, "Stop, you got me. Let me die in peace." And the Yakutsk soldier stopped, and he like let the Ukrainian soldier be. And he tried to give him a like a mercy killing, but the Ukrainian soldier said, "No, no, 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 don't worry about me." And at that moment, he said, "You are the greatest fighter in the world. I've never fought someone like that before." And it it makes me tear up just thinking about it. And the Yakutskian soldier just says, "Okay," and he walks off, and the Ukrainian soldier takes his own life after that. And it's like that's an Iliadic moment. That's a fucking hero.
Yes.
You know, that's something we can immortalize. And if we ever, in 2050, introduce high school students to the Russo-Ukrainian War of 2022, let that be the opening poem, that we
Yeah.
tell them about, not this fucking whatever narrative they're trying to do with victimhood or just endless FP soul crushing drone footage or anything like that.
Well, that's really cool, and it almost I would encourage you actually to write that up, um, in something, just because that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, I did think while I was saying that about putting these victims up. I mean, it is kind of part of Christian martyr culture. She's a martyr, so therefore, that there is a long history of making paintings of martyrs. I was just in Florence. There's many, like that's a very deeply Christian tradition, is to make paintings of martyrs. But and so that may factor into it. That is something, even for people who aren't particularly religious, you get this, you know, uh, residual effect of like they still have to do the thing, which a lot of what woke was. They still have to do these religious things, even though they don't think that they're religious. I mean, all in all, I mean, it'll be a beautiful girl's face on a building somewhere, and people will probably forget why it's there. But
Worse.
it's just like my cynical side was like, this is what the right has to have in order for them to raise money to make art. Like that. I was kind of like, seriously, like that you can't make anything like inspiring and great, but you're copying Black Lives Matter and making murals of someone who was a victim. Not that she doesn't deserve to be remembered, but just more like, really, that's kind of sad. But moving on, I guess, to the Charlie Kirk thing,
Sure.
and that was a surprise, because we were discussing. I felt like there was so much disinformation and people losing their minds on the video about the girl today, that I started a discussion in the Order of Fire, because I'm like, hey, maybe people need to vent about this, and we have a better valve for it in the Order of Fire, behind closed doors, than people putting all that to their Facebooks and Instagrams and spouting that out. Like, let's talk this out here and share information. And we had a good discussion going, and then in the middle of the discussion, Medivir jumps in and be like, and Charlie Kirk was just shot, and we're like, what? God, I have work to do today. What am I? What? And
Yeah.
and so obviously, then we had to go and look at that and see what that was. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we saw the video. All our guys. I mean, we have a lot of gun guys who are analyzing that from behind the scenes and like what went on, and we're trying to figure that out. But I mean, it is a real shame. Like obviously, I've been to a Charlie Cook event. I've been to a Turning Point event. I mean, I've been in the same room with him. Not I haven't met him or anything, but so I've seen one. I've been to one of those events. He's a Phoenix guy. I mean, he's an Arizona dude. That's where Turning Point's based in. And so I went to one of the Turning Point events, a couple years ago, and so I have some familiarity with all that and how big that was. It was a big convention center downtown. It was a big event. He was doing a very large event, and it was a really, really, really influential figure. And obviously, super Christian, so not really my brand. But a lot of those guys I have a bad opinion of, and I didn't really have a bad opinion of him at all. I'm like, oh, he seems like he's a nice guy. It's not my brand, but like he seems like he's probably a decent dude. Is I think the general perception of him across the board. I think by anyone who isn't just a crazy leftist who thinks everybody on the right is bad. I think generally he's regarded as being a nice guy, and like 31 years old, like accomplished a lot in his life. And actually will be. I mean, obviously, when your president does your eulogy, that's kind of a big deal.
And the president calls you a legend.
Yeah, and orders the flags to be hung at half mast. I'm like, ooh. So that's a big tribute. So he will be remembered for sure. And that I'm sure that. But I think the more interesting thing to talk about is like what is going to happen from here. A lot of people are saying, I think a lot of people think that this is like there's going to be some moment where everybody loses their mind and, more talk of civil wars and all that kind of stuff. I don't really see that happening. I think that in 2 or 3 days, everybody will cool down. But there is a sea change between those two things happening right together. The first thing I said, actually, when Medivir said that, I'm like, please let the shooter not be black. Because that would have been bad. That would have been those two things back to back would have been a very, very bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, the false subject was a older boomer looking guy that turned out not to be the shooter. But that's like that seems like more like the profile. Like if you see that, like the two guys that attempted to shoot Trump, one of them who succeeded, kind of, assuming that's the real shooter. There's questions there. But then there was another attempt on a golf course. It was like a middle-aged white guy that was a Ukrainian volunteer, had some weird ties to strange organizations and so forth. Like that's the sort of profile I would more expect. But for something like that. I have a Army sniper friend who messaged me. He said security messed up unbelievably. Like this was it looks like the shooter location was about 200 yards away, I think. And he says like they cover areas like that for concerts, but they didn't cover it for an event like this. It seems kind of wild, but I'm no expert in that, but that would suggest.
I mean, and the dude does events all the time, and he's not the president, and he's not like he's just a public figure, So like obviously they're going to worry about around him, but he's not going to get the Secret Service sweep that the president's supposed to get, like so, obviously he's pretty bad. I mean, you know who would be interesting to talk to? I bet who has a skinny on that, some background information. We do have actually 2 members on the SWAT team in Salt Lake City. Like maybe I should talk to some of those guys. I haven't talked to them in a while, but it would be interesting. I'm sure they have some other information that some background. But regardless, I think, like, I don't know. What do you think? How do you see this playing out? How do you see it affecting long term? I mean, we
Well,
won't know.
I
But
don't. I think I agree with you that if you just look at the shooting itself, um,
Mhm.
nothing changed that much, right? Like
Right.
I think opening this up with invoking Cicero is perfect because there is a long and storied history of not just politicians but public intellectuals and people of that sort getting killed or tortured or exiled and stuff.
Mhm.
Socrates was not a politician. Um, Machiavelli, or was it Machiavelli or was it Dante who was uh, like tortured almost to death? One of those
No,
two.
Machiavelli. I mean, I don't know about Dante, but Machiavelli definitely he was on the wrong team before
It
he
might have
wrote The
been both of
Prince.
them actually.
Yeah, Machiavelli had his shoulders broken.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so this is like uh, Nassim Taleb has this book Skin in the Game, where he
yeah.
said prior to a certain point in history, I think it was the Peace of Westphalia, something like 95% of kings died either on the battlefield or by assassination. Um, this
Yeah.
this used to be just a thing that happened to public intellectuals, and we thought we had reached the end of history, and sometimes we have to be reminded that no, we haven't escaped history. We're
Right.
back. But I think what changed is not the unchanging nature of political violence at the top. It's the
Hmm.
feeling people have watching someone they like, or maybe they didn't even like, but they think he shouldn't have been killed. And say, wow, what
Hmm.
a travesty. And seeing this whataboutery from people on the other side. Where was this concern that you're having for Charlie Kirk about? Oh, there was a mass shooting in Colorado today. Oh, there was these children that got shot somewhere else. And that whataboutery, uh, it's like a moralistic backhand. It's an insult to injury that that an enemy gives you. It's a demoralizing thing, and I think the effect of the discourse around, and that's the one thing I've heard the most from sort of influencer types, is this feeling of shock at just how awful people are being about this. And I think there is a
Right.
growing sense from the public that like the shooting itself, the death of Charlie Kirk, might not have a huge effect, but there might be an experience, an even deeper experience, that the other political side is not just, we don't just have disagreements, they are an enemy and they want me to die, and they're gleeful when my heroes die. And
Yeah, and
I think that matters a lot. And like you say, I think there is a good chance that next week we'll be on to another story, and it will be nominally forgotten, but it'll still be, but that feeling that, oh, they hate me, will still be there in their brain, and it will now be the priming for other um, instances of confirmation in the future, whatever they haven't already been primed to feel by COVID and by the whole Trump election cycle of 2016 and 2020. Um, because I mean,
yeah,
Scott Adams' X post that Republicans will be hunted if Biden gets elected. It was one of these things that he got roundly mocked for. It's like, oh, they'll be hunted, huh? And then these things keep happening, and he primed people to see it, and now we're
hmm,
seeing it, and it's going to stick for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I think what a lot of people were saying about Charlie Kirk is that he was, and this is true, is that he was the guy who would actually, he was the super reasonable, nice guy who would go out and just like talk to people, and he would talk to anybody, and that's what he was really known for.
Yeah.
And not being a blowhard, you know, full of like hatred and whatever. I mean, he was just like someone who wanted to, a little bit like yourself versus me. Uh, Like you'll argue with anyone even if you think they're stupid. Not that's not true, but like I mean you're willing to entertain and as you said in your reel, be charitable. And I think he was probably a very charitable debater. Compared to, like I said, I would just dismiss them. I don't want to hear what they have to say. But you would charitably debate them, and I think that was what he did as well. And that's what everyone is saying. I mean, through my feed on X, is like, you killed the nice guy. Like whoever comes next is not him. And that's a big prediction. I don't know that that's true. I think that might be a little bit jerk offy. But it's like this was the guy who wanted to meet everyone in the middle, and everyone's saying that they actually killed moderate conservatism, and they're making everyone more extreme, and that there may be something to that, and I wonder what that looks like. Like, because I still think normal people are normal people, and normal people don't want as much as they're saying right now that it looks like they want blood and all that stuff online. I don't think most people are there.
I can tell you two
I think that they would like to see. Okay,
you're not gonna like either one.
Yeah.
The nicer one is Eric Prince. I think that's the person to look out for if Trump had gotten killed.
Yeah.
That would have been the Trump sort of personality replacement, and everyone's like worried about Trump being a fascist or something. Not even close. But Eric Prince would have been a movement in that direction. And I think what you're looking at to replace Charlie Kirk, the person who's going to fill that void for a lot of people, is going to be Nick Fuentes.
Yeah. I heard someone say that too. You're not the first person who said that today. I don't know how much. I mean, obviously for the people who like, he has so little appeal. I mean, he can say words, but I mean, as far as, Charlie Kirk being, married guy with kids, like super relatable to like normal college people, versus this like little weasel, this little gay weasel who like,
I think if people feel sufficiently threatened, they're not thinking in terms of associative appeal. They're thinking in terms of results and speaking the truth in a way that's honest or not honest, in a way that is forceful.
Right.
And Nick Fuentes, for all of his unappealingness, of which there's a lot, he is the extreme alternative that I think a lot of people will shift to.
Yeah, I think a lot of the shittiest people will. I can't imagine men who are worthy of respect following him. I mean, like with any like aside from like, oh, he said something funny or whatever, but like I can't imagine like, I can't imagine the dudes we know who are in special forces or like, like just dudes who have seen things and done things, and men who are like substantial, like being like, I want to listen to what this little dork has to say. Like I think that to other little dorks, I think, and to people who want to hear anyone say those words, like the white nationalist kind of guy, anyone who says bad things about the Jews, they will listen to. Even if it's weird. I mean, like, even if it's weird homosexuals, like they will. I mean, like, if you say the words that no one else will say, they will listen to you, and they will cheer you on because they are hiding under their couches at home, not saying those words behind their anonymous things. So whoever says the words for them, they will line up behind and forgive all their other things until they get caught in a sex scandal or a pedo ring,
which is coming for Nick Fuentes. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I mean, in theory, he already did, but like, I mean, I think, but then it got papered over, I guess.
Maybe the more hopeful possibility, is a shift towards Tim Pool, because Tim Pool is already basically Charlie Kirk, but
Yeah.
he is more substantial of a person. He's I don't know. He's always been a little bit more Charlie Kirk had, I think, an optimism to it. And I think what people are feeling is a death of optimism. They're not full on black pill, but
Right.
Tim Pool is more, he's not the optimist that Charlie Kirk was. So if we're lucky, there will be a shift towards Tim Pool, perhaps.
Right. I was listening to his show about this today.
Mhm.
And yeah, Tim Poyle, I generally have a good opinion of him. Uh, the people on his show, I don't know their names because I don't follow it every day. I just, like generally have a good opinion of him. But he, the people on his show saying really, very weird Christian fruitcakey things about like, creating like, you know, seeing these images creating demonic energy in the world and things like that. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like
But
that's,
that is one of the things I like about Tim Pool is he does believe in God, but he's not
yeah,
a Christian. Um, and he doesn't subscribe to that. He gets along with Christians, but he goes so far, but not further with them in an
right.
interesting way. I think he's a little bit more than a deist, but not by a lot. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's very easy for people to, like I was talking about before, to find confirmation bias in large events like this.
mm,
Um, the most obnoxious part is the of social media I've experienced the last couple days is the conspiracy theory part that finds the hands of the deep state or Israel in all of this before anything has been discovered for sure. It's like
oh, for sure.
this was clearly an Israeli plot to generate more sympathy for themselves. It's like we don't even know what we don't know about this yet. Um, and it's never. It would be one thing if they stated these assertions as hypotheses in a way that was falsifiable, and they're like,
Right.
oh, this is what my worldview predicts. That's not what came out, huh? So maybe I'll check my worldview. Now,
Yeah.
there are some conspiracy theories. I won't go into too much detail on which ones that do have an uncanny and uncomfortable amount of predictive value. But those are not the ones that are usually the loudest on these social media channels. But
Right.
um, but what the conspiracy theorists do get right, I think, is that these kinds of events, these kinds of very public, very attention-getting murders or things, have a tendency to draw us a out of a proactive high agency state and to
Right.
put us into a reactive herd mentality. Um, Now they often take it a step further and they say, and this is who's doing it and this is why. And it's like, let's stop where we know what we're talking about here. But on
Right.
that point, I think the conspiracy theorists are correct, even if only incidentally. Um,
Mm.
and I think it is good to not be a complete idiot in the Greek sense and to be aware of what's going on, to know what the risks are, to see the dangers and the death that is, going on in your society, but to not let that take away your agency and put you into a tribal mindset that blinds you to contradictory facts, which is often what happens here too.
Very much so. Very much so. And it's a shame. Yeah, but that's what I see happening with a lot of this probably is
Mhm.
that, like I said, there's rabbit holes that take a long time to crawl back out of. Once you go down like, oh my God, they were lying to me all these years. Yes, they were. Like,
Yes,
yes, they were.
but that you
And
don't want to
then,
be.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just I was reminded of this in a conversation I had with someone. They said, "Don't you want? But don't isn't it good to be angry?" And in conversing with this person, I was reminded, all the way back in Defense of Hatred, I was talking about hot hatred versus cold hatred. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to do something about this, you don't want to be the bull in the ring that's charging at the cape. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be so hot-tempered that you become easy to control by people who know how to pull the emotional strings. And there are a lot of those
Mm-hmm.
people. It's not just people in the government or in intelligence or whatever. It's like there are influencers out there. There's like 22-year-olds with 100,000 followers who know how to push those buttons and will try
Yeah.
to push people to do things that will make everything worse for everybody, but is, fulfills a vengeance fantasy for themselves or someone else, but they don't want to do it themselves.
Well, and it
Um,
makes you feel powerful. Obviously, it makes them feel very powerful if they can anytime you can control other people
yes,
and get them to do things and say dance monkey dance, and they do it. I mean, that gives people a sense of like power and authority.
it's just the
Obviously,
thumos organ grinder
yeah,
con-
yeah, that's my
concept.
my
Yes,
my favorite. Yeah, those guys who, yeah, it's like you get excited about. This is my old thing that I've brought up many times. Like the guys who like you're like dance monkey dance, and they get excited about getting these guys psyched up to go and fight a war against nothing and do like nothing that makes sense. I mean, like there's so many people with the like race thing right now that I mean, like there's this big thing on X. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard, but like it's like send them all back. Like, okay, if you're talking about illegal aliens, okay, I got you. That seems reasonable. But they're talking about like sending like blacks back. Like I mean, Matt, they've been here longer than my family has. Like, there are many blacks in America whose lines
yeah,
have been here longer than my own.
yeah.
Like it's not a viable solution. You
And
can't
it's a
just send that
it's
many people
especially
back anywhere.
it's an especially funny point when we remember this, and it's a very uncomfortable fact to bring up.
Yeah,
But the girl who was killed on the train
yeah,
was a refugee. Like,
right.
isn't that the in the class of people we're talking about sending back? It's
Yeah,
and it's again, that's not to say anything about the like to justify the act or anything, but it highlights
no,
the absurdity of the conclusion being drawn that like this means that we need to do X or Y or whatever. Um, there are things we need to do, and I think the primary target, if you think about things, is not a racial category, it's not a particular politician or anything. It probably begins with the DAs of these
yeah,
cities. I don't know about the particular town, was it Charlotte,
yeah,
where she was killed, but I know that in the city I grew up and lived near, Seattle, uh, police officers have been quitting en masse for years because they keep arresting people and the DA doesn't prosecute. So the police will go after these. It's always a bit of a risk to go after these people and
for sure.
capturing them, putting them in jail, locking them up, hitting them with charges. DA doesn't prosecute. Police officer goes out to get his coffee the next day. There's that guy I arrested freaking yesterday.
Yeah,
What am I even doing here? You know,
right.
um, and then that guy goes off and like steals someone else's catalytic converter. Great or worse. Um, and these DAs have been put there in many cases intentionally, seemingly
Yes.
for no other purpose than to ruin these cities. Um, so you
Yeah.
know if you listen to that thumos, and for anyone who's listening to this for whom we're speaking Greek, thumos is your spirit. It's your sense of where justice comes from, your desire for the righting of wrongs, and your desire for recognition and status comes from.
Mm.
Think of like Andrew Tate personified, but with maybe a higher sense of morality. Um, like that's your thumos, and it's a very valuable thing. It's good to have. It's not good to let that run your life. It's a very dangerous master, a strong servant, but a bad uh, leader. Um, it's what's personified in the problems of the timarchy in Plato's Republic. But that's
Yeah,
a
the
bit of
best
a
the
digression.
example I always use for thumos to explain it, and it is extremely timely because it's tomorrow, is 9/11. Uh, there were so many guys after 9/11 who was like, I need to join the military now. And that was, I've known so many of them over the years. I need to do something, and that is thumos personified. I need to do something, and that, even though, yeah, they all got fucked over and it was all bullshit, but what their emotions weren't bullshit and their emotions
Yeah,
weren't wrong. They're like, what is the most productive way that I can help? Like, I will go fight.
yeah.
And I will go fight for what I believe is right. And that is the, I've known so many guys who did that, and that's what they felt. They feel betrayed by it later, but like, their emotions were not wrong, and they did it the right way. It's not like they went out on the street and started killing Muslims. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, okay, we're going to war. I will join the war. Like, that's, I think that's thumos in its healthiest aspect. But as that shows, thumos can be very easily manipulated, which is why I say the organ grinders of thumos. You can whip dudes up and send them in a direction and waste their lives.
There's this great
Like,
line. There's this great line from the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg where he gets
mhm.
caught in this presidential fake assassination plot, and he
Yeah,
is the fall
it's a good
guy.
movie.
And he says, at one point he's injured, and he's explaining to his dead comrade's wife. He's like, they got me on my patriotism. He's like, I ain't proud of it, but I ain't ashamed of it either. I feel like that
Mhm.
captures the relationship very well. It's something you should have, but you should recognize that it can be a weakness if you are not careful. And it's an illustration of the way that people can be used as pawns
Mhm.
for things that they in conflicts that they did not fully understand. And that is,
Right.
I think, if the question is, what is the solar way to approach these kinds of news stories and this kind of news political climate,
Mhm.
it feels like the way to stay solar is to maintain a degree of lofty perspective and detachment, not complete detachment, but
Mhm.
enough detachment that you can maintain your sense of agency, that you can maintain the supremacy of your mind, your logos over your thumos, and harness your thumos like a chariot, not let it run you roughshod over all kinds of rough terrain that you didn't sign up to travel over.
Exactly. I agree. And that's why I always tell people, I mean, that was my message put on Instagram today. Um, Hold on. Like, especially with news cycle stories, um, like, usually everything that you hear the first day is wrong or becomes different later, or whether the story changes or whatever. Obviously, certain things that happened today actually happened. But there's there's sometimes more to it. Like, they always pick the wrong person to start with, and then everybody blames the one group, and it's actually the other group. That happens a lot. It's not who they want it to be all the time, and so I think you can feel angry about it, but it's good to not express that and to like hold on to that and to hold on to that thumatic feeling, and then like I said, translate that into rational action in like, well, how would you actually change this? Rather than this kind of a cathartic experience of just like, I'm so angry, I'm so angry, I'm so angry, and telling everybody that you can, everybody in the world, by typing it out online, where you can, yeah, I think you should think about it. And you should hold on to it, and you should not be angry. It's okay to, I think you should want to seek justice and to see the world get better and all those things. I think those are good things. But, like, maybe show up to fucking vote. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that you can actually get involved in, that aren't going to ruin your life, and that aren't like, just don't look just like performative emoting,
Yeah,
and that you can actually do, and do those.
yeah, and you can
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could. Yeah, and so many of the steps you can take. Like there are so many small, practical, and effective moves that you can do that preempt this kind of thing. What we're seeing is not even the worst possible outcome. There's all kinds of like far worse places we could go, but we're
Hmm.
beginning to get a taste of what a really bad outcome could look like. We could there is a chance that we could look at something that no one will call a civil war, but feels an awful lot like the Irish Troubles for like 10 years or longer,
Hmm.
with just sporadic political violence that takes out, a dozen innocent civilians there, a politician there, a bus full of people over here, um, nonstop for however long. And it's built on this sort of political tribalism of resentment and arguably one might say the logic of political power itself, which
Hmm.
requires a sort of Carl Schmittian outgroup of them, um, that you organize your own political constituency around in opposition to. Um, so that there are you don't like in a sense violent political response, like, oh, it's time for me to go do an assassination now, is almost like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. Like that's almost too little too late. That there are so many steps we could do to preempt that in advance if only you're courageous enough to stand up to that blue-haired HR lady and to say,
Right.
no, I think the things we're teaching in this, social studies class are stupid and possibly illegal. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend like this makes sense so that I can get my paper or whatever. There's all kinds of little acts of courage that will that we have not been taking, that have been allowing us to, that instead we've been internalizing and building up resentment, and then these big moments happen and all this rage and resentment from hundreds of little insults that we ignored over the years
Hmm.
come pouring out in this almost excessive manner. Because like you said before, very few of us know Charlie Kirk personally, and even fewer of us know, um, Irina personally. um, the rage feels like a displacement from things that we could have done something about in our actual lives, and maybe we should.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I said in the other, we were talking the other day in the group, and I'm starting this new photography business. And I'm like, well, what are my lines going to be? Who am I not going to work with? What am I not going to promote? Because you can be like everybody's money is good, but then and as a business sometimes you want to or have to be like that, but that's how we get to where we are too. Like yeah, like oh, no one said no to these people, and then just gave them a glow up, and then like they're now you are now making propaganda. I mean, what I'm doing is making propaganda. Really, I'm like making people look good. So like if I make the wrong people look good, like I'm a little bit responsible for that. So like I think you have to be aware of all those things in your own life. And yeah, like those are the little things that you could just say no to that one person, rather than like do a political violence. There's a lot of little no things that you probably should have said no to, or maybe a job that you should have left,
Yeah,
or like something like that. Like that would have been hard and it would have sucked, but it's
yeah.
not the you don't have to go all the way to uh, you know ISIS.
And I think it
you know,
reflects, a kind of escapism latent in the
yes,
thinking of people who dream about the boogaloo, who look forward to
right,
the apocalyptic moment where they can join the death squad or whatever, because a they realize that's probably not coming, but b,
yeah,
like, it reflects that the work of learning to borrow Aristotle's language of doing battle with language, which is
hmm,
just as even more defining of the human animal than doing battle with limbs. Um,
right,
is actually hard work and requires training and stuff. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. They don't feel like they should have to do that. And
Right.
it can take different forms. Not everybody needs to be a debater like Charlie Kirk or a master debater like Christopher Hitchens. But
That's you have to say that, but
you got to
but
work
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
everybody can learn, like you say, how to say no, and should learn how to say no, and not just for politics, but for boundary setting in general. Um,
right.
there's a danger in um, I want to draw from more canceled people, a danger of becoming over socialized, to borrow a phrase. Um,
Yeah,
in saying yes and going with the herd too much. That is a different kind of low agency than just being dominated by thumos. And maybe Plato doesn't have a term for the sort of Freudian super ego that reflects, but there's a
right.
danger to that too. And we have to balance these two things as best we can.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just yeah. Anyway, cool. I think that's good for
Yeah.
our show for today. It's a good place to wrap it up. I just wanted to. I thought it was a good time to address a little bit of this going
Yeah.
on. Where it's like stay solar. We had one guy who asked. I didn't get a lot of questions on this. I think people just thought we were going to talk about solar idealism or whatever, and didn't throw me a lot of their spicy questions because I was expecting some of those. But I didn't think they knew we were going to talk about the spicier stuff. But one person did ask me, how do I stay stoic in these times? And like I said, that's where I want to go back to. Nothing happened to you, son. You just saw some bad TV about things that are
Yeah.
not good, but you go to work.
Well,
You know,
but
yeah,
I think your opening answers it very well, though. I think
yeah,
um, people's time horizon for what's normal in politics extends back to about the 80s, if even
right,
that, into the maybe just the 90s. And if you go back even 60 years, or let alone
yeah,
200 or 2000 years, stuff like this is so normal. It's
right,
so common. Much of Roman politics was simply the senators and politicians organizing their street thugs to beat up people who tried to vote from the other side. Like that was how Roman politics worked at some points in time. Um,
right.
so like if you read, the advice I was giving to people is like, now is a really good week to crack open a book that's 200 years old or older, to
Right.
recalibrate your sense of normal, and to remember that this is not the end of the world. Things like this have happened in the past and far worse, and
Far worse.
the world keeps turning, and the sun still rises, and we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, guys, obviously we are here in the Order of Fire. If you're watching this, one thing I wanted to put out there for anyone who's watching this or watches it later is that it is now cooling down from Arrakis season in Arizona, which starts my hiking season. The rest of you guys are going into winter, but now I can go outdoors without dying. And and I mean not tomorrow, but like in a few weeks. But and so I'm really trying to get some guys together in the order in Arizona. I think we could really do things. There's a lot to do in the next like 6 or 8 months, and then we'll have an event in March, and we have some. I'm going out to Joshua Tree for an is ASG, is that what's it called? I forget the acronyms. Um, shooting TSG. Our
Oh yeah,
TSG group,
Marvis,
our
yeah.
TSG group that I'm going to go out and film some of our guys in a TSG group who shoot firearms and practice. They're going to do a workshop with a Marine Raider,
Oh yeah,
Contour, who's really cool, and
fucking awesome.
yeah, it's totally awesome. And then I'm going to go up to Salt Lake City in November and drive up there and hopefully do a ritual up there and meet some of the guys up in that area. So we have a lot. We have a lot going on, and the order, I think, is a really cool group of guys. And if you like Fire in the Dark and you like our podcast, you like Solar Idealism, we'd love to see your application, because I think that there's still a lot of really potential for growth in the order, and there's a lot more to do. And the more guys we have in, the more we can do. So it's this is the reason why I started the order. My little sales pitch is basically a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. If you don't like what you're seeing with a lot of the people flipping to kind of crazy Christianity at this point, because that's a thing right now, and after today, it's going to be a little bit more of a thing. There's a wave to that, and if you don't want that to be your whole reality, and then have to go get baptized in a horse trough in some corporate garbage mall church, like people do all the time and think it's cool. If you would like to do something cooler, like have a fire ritual, which are awesome, join the Order of Fire. Be part of the thing that is not the thing that you don't like. Like a lot of our members are not only a lot of former Marines, I don't know what, and current firefighters, but also a lot of former Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and so forth. The people who are just like, I'm done with that. I'm ready for something that has a little broader view.
Did we ever resolve the theological problem with firefighters in the order? Or is that still ongoing?
There is no theological problem. They just like fire, so they join the Order of Fire.
Sorry.
As in the Pope, I approve. But anyway, the Order of Fire is a really cool group. We're looking for some more members. So if you've been on the fence about it, thinking about it, and we're not a fitness group. All these groups say that they're going to get you abs or whatever, but we do know how to do that. And we will help you. I did get an application from a guy today. He's like, he didn't think he was in shape enough. I think a lot of guys think that they're not in shape enough to join the Order of Fire. I'm like, no, we can help with that. Yes, we would prefer that you're jacked, but
we can get you there too.
We can also help get you there. We have a good brain trust of how to help you out with that. And that's kind of our whole thing, is to make you better, but we are about a bigger thing, creating a bigger culture too. So anyway, this has been PH2T3R, the Journal of Solar Culture. And until next time, stay solar.
Stay solar.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Journal of Solar Culture. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and leave us a comment. The first volume of our journal is available in paperback and now, finally, on Kindle. Pick it up in our store or on Amazon.